This week, our series on Jack Kirby's 1970s work continues as Emmet and I discuss Captain America and the Falcon 201 to 203. Our heroes face the Night People, an assortment of mental patients whose asylum has ended up in a very unusual place. It's a story with nods to romance comics as well as commentary on treatment of the mentally ill. But why is this a Captain America story? Would it have worked with another hero? First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet in country Victoria, Australia. Down under, mate.
How are things, Tim?
Okay, how are you?
Surviving a brief lull in the crushing heat. The crushing, relentless heat. So it's slightly cooler today. So I'm taking some relief from that. And I was thinking fondly of January back in Ireland and the nice cool mornings and, you know, how you'd go for a walk in the park or everything. You'd see the birds and the squirrels and all these things, the winter creatures like coming up for their quick forage before having to retreat. And I misspoke there. Probably squirrels weren't too evident. And then news broke overnight that my homeland is currently being battered by a cyclone.
Yeah.
So things are not good out there. So I feel like either way I would be in trouble.
So we're back to Kirby's Captain America and the Falcon. So we're going to start with issue 201 and see how much time we take up and do some of these issues.
This is a juicy collection of issues. And like I think there's one passage, we'll see if we get to it, where I felt there was a gross misstep. Given that the previous episode we recorded, I was very impressed that Kirby included Jim Brown and that the whole sequence of Jim Brown. I was like, oh, okay.
You mean John Brown?
John Brown, thank you.
Yeah, not the dude. Football player Jim Brown, but
not the whole big Jim Brown. No, this is John Brown. But there's a passage in this that I was like, whoa. But other than that, some really interesting stuff in these issues.
Okay. All right. So issue 201, we got Cap and Falcon on the cover. It's obviously kind of a symbolic cover because Cap and Falcon are huge, and they're like towering over the city, looking down at these people who we'll meet in this issue, the Night People, who are casting huge shadows on the walls of the city.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover because you're right. You've got Captain Falcon looking at the city in miniature, and it suggests like the theme of this story where you've got these people, these undesirables, these castaways, these people who've been neglected by society, and now they're saying, oh, they're the Night People. They're going to destroy the world because this problem hasn't been dealt with, and it's grown bigger and bigger and bigger. So while Cap and Falcon are huge in proportion, there's this suggestion that within these urban cities, these problems of mental illness and crime and all these connected issues have been growing and it's like an infection, and that's where I'm bringing in the idea of size. It's almost like they're looking at the problem of urban malaise through a microscope. It's a really impactful cover.
Mm-hmm. So we open the story with a bunch of Cap and Falcon action figures. I wonder if these are made by Mego.
Yeah. It's always interesting how how Kirby focuses on the marketing. So we've already talked about the idea of the comic books existing within the superhero universe. Now we have the toys.
Yeah, and it comes up again later in this issue.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, and I wonder if it's Kirby looking at these figurines, going, "Well, where's my cut?"
Well, yeah.
Like, I created this character with Joe Simon. Like, where's my cut?
Yeah,
So,
I'm not sure if Kirby was involved in creating Falcon or not, but certainly
I don't
Cap.
believe he was. I think it might have been Stan Lee. I think Stan Lee introduced Falcon. Although how instrumental he was, who knows? Certainly his name was on the book.
Right, yes. And a hand is picking up a Cap figure. He calls them superhero figurines.
Very formal.
And, thinking that these are poor substitutes for the real thing. And we see this guy on the next page saying that the night people of Zero Street shall not rest until they have a superhero of their very own. That's going to be their goal here in this issue. And we'll find out why later.
Yeah, he's a sort of quasi-Dickensian street person.
Was even called Brother Dickens.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So yes, he was writing large there, putting a hat on a hat. A hat on a very decrepit-looking hat. But yes, the Night People, this is our introduction to the Night People and their way of address and their mode of speech. And I find the Night People and the premise of where they're going and coming from fascinating. I think it's fascinating. It goes back to the thing we've been talking about with Kirby since the New Gods, which is this idea of taking this fantastical concept and then just slamming it into this really ordinary space. And which, the superhero narrative typically exists within, but there's usually like this clear division, whereas Kirby just like mashes them together. And makes it weird, and that's why I find him really interesting. So, yeah, the night foraging has been sheer delight. I love the way they talk.
And cop or night watchman, I'm not sure, similar uniform, but he catches him and shouldn't be there at this time of night. He's like looking through this shop. But then a bunch of the other night people jump this guy and beat the crap out of him, basically. Yeah.
He had a bit of lip on him, too. He was speaking with a degree of confidence because he said, this store isn't open to late-night shoppers. And he's got some bits. He's got some banter. And I think the implication is he's seeing this bedraggled-looking person in the store, and he's going, I'm going to intimidate him. And then he gets swarmed straight away. I believe he is a cop because they call him Fuzzy. So, like, the Fuzz. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's a cop.
Okay. So, yeah, it looks like they're in a toy store. That's why the action figures were there. And they leave the guy beaten up in the kind of wreckage of the toy store.
You see an Iron Man helmet on top of a shelf there as well. I don't know if you can make it out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Kirby's mind is on merchandising.
And then we have a page laid out with like a circle panel in the middle and 6 panels surrounding it. And the surrounding panels are showing the various things that the night people are doing, stealing from supermarkets and pet shops and just about everywhere.
Cinema. They steal a projector from the cinema mid-screening.
And then the center panel is a police operator taking calls and saying, "What do you mean you can't find them? You were just about to put the cuffs on them." And another cop saying, "How do those weirdos pull off their vanishing act?" So the cops are baffled. So time to go to the bat phone. Oh no, wait, wrong comic. So call in Cap and Falcon. This is at SHIELD Detention Headquarters. Now this is a wrap up of the Mad Bomb storyline that we covered months ago that ended in issue 200.
Yeah, and it still underlines how Cap and Falcon have differing perspectives on what just happened
Uh-huh.
and the political reality of America, which is at least fair of Kirby to say, Falcon's not going to be rah rah rah. This is great. We saved the country. He's like, this is screwed up.
Uh-huh.
Look what this guy did, and like all people in my community are locked up for doing far less stuff.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
guy. You're giving him this cushy treatment. It's an interesting sort of just commentary on the reality of
at a time when I don't think that was nearly as much in the public conversation as it is now. The kind of mass incarceration of black people or poor people.
it was a part of the equal rights discussion. But you're right. You had a large segment of the principally white population that could simply ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
They, because society was stratified in such a way. And you could dismiss it. You could say, oh, that's just rabble-rousing. Oh, it's just violence in the streets. They're rioting for no reason, things like that. Whereas at least now, as much as there is this effort to control the narrative, control what information we receive, there is a porousness to how we receive information. I mean, it looks like that's changing rapidly, Tim. It's like 5 dudes control all the modes of media. But that we have lived through a period where anyone with a phone in their pocket could pretty much share with the world, "Hey, look at what I'm seeing."
Mm-hmm.
And we that's the difference between now and then.
So they're going to be talking with what's his name, Harding, who had been kind of forced into working with the Mad Bomb folks and then blew the whistle on them and helped Cap and Falcon stop the Mad Bomb threat. But Harding did commit crimes and he has to go to prison now, although he'll get a reduced sentence because he helped in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting the panel where we actually see Harding in like close on, and his shoulders are obscuring Falcon and Cap on either side of him, and you might think of the angel on your shoulder or whatever, but there is this. I like. It's interesting how it's blocked. It's interesting how their faces are partially obscured, and Cap's being sympathetic, and Falcon's like basically screw you, and we're having this moment of him Harding reflecting on what he did,
and the discussion here is so detailed that you kind of like, oh yeah, okay, so that's what happened. Like, really fills you in on what happened in case you missed that story. It kind of brought the whole thing back that we read months ago. Like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Now you'd have a little bit of little comment box saying, check out issue 200, dear reader, Smiling Jack sure did serve up a fable there. Some sort of
it seems to be even at this time that there would have been a lot of comics where there would have been a footnote like that. Yeah, not so much discussion of the story that's finished. It's not what this issue's about at all.
It sort of would invite the Stan Lee authorial voice through the editor caption. Whereas here, Jack said, no, I'm going to summarize my story. I'm going to have characters talk about it.
Yeah, so Cap and Falcon go to a hotel room. Narration tells us it was chosen by S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Cap is taking a bath with the door open. And Falcon is on the phone calling his girlfriend, Layla. And Falcon says, turn down the voice box, Cap. I'm tuning in on the music my woman makes. And then Cap just keeps talking.
Yeah. And it's sort of, I think certain panels here could be taken out of context. And we could have a Reddit thread about how Cap and Falcon are in a threesome with Sharon. When I finally catch up with Sharon, we'll double the pleasure. No. This comic's for children.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how to take these panels, but I could easily fill in the word balloons with different dialogue and make it work very differently. So he's talking with Layla, and she's cracked up about the newspaper headlines about the night people who are stealing everything in town but money. And listen to this, Sam. Last night, those clowns stole a harp from the Philharmonic, a shipment of Marvel Comics, 10 antique telephones, and a judge's gavel from the municipal court. So,
like the implication is they're stealing things that don't matter. So I love that a shipment of Marvel Comics is included. Some trash Marvel Comics.
Some oddball things like, this magazine you're holding in your hand.
Who'd be caught dead reading these?
So there are a couple of the night people lurking outside her window. I wonder what floor she's on. And they overhear that she's talking to Falcon. So I think she needs to be a little bit more careful about secret identity stuff here.
She's got the window open.
With the window open, yeah.
She says his full name.
Yeah, don't snicker, Sam Wilson. Our city has run dry of superheroes just when it needs one badly. This gaggle of goofies may be whacked out, but they're batting 1,000.
Did you catch the name?
And in the panel before, she mentions him as Falcon. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. And the two guys are saying, they know she knows a superhero. Did you catch their names? Are Brother Harmony and Brother Peach Pie? They all have great names.
So while she's still on the phone, they come in the window and grab her. And we'll see, they take her back to the night people hideout. So
she immediately clocks it at the night people, though. Like, she immediately knows it's them.
Right, yeah. I don't know if she could even see them, but she yells out, Sam, the night people, move. And so that's enough of a clue that now Sam figures out that they've grabbed her. As unlikely as that would seem, as coincidental as it definitely was. So without even saying anything to Cap, Sam changes to Falcon and flies out and leaves the phone off the hook. And so Cap's there in a towel, thinking, he's gone. What happened? He looks out the window, sees Falcon flying away. And I was a little puzzled here. Didn't quite explain Falcon's goal here, but apparently he did this on purpose, flew up and caught a passing airplane trying to get back to New York. Like, we're not going to actually pay for airfare here or something. We're just going to grab a passing airplane and tag along.
Yeah. We're told he reaches his goal, the commercial airlines. So yes, that was his intention.
Okay.
To hitchhike on a plane.
As you do.
And yeah, it's very Twilight Zone, where there's a gremlin on the wing of the plane. So,
there's a superhero on the wing of the plane.
This man's hysterical. But yeah, no, the pilots spot him. But yeah, he's hanging on to like the actual equipment on the wing that helps the plane fly.
He like grabs the flap. I'm like, is this a good idea? Is the plane going to be able to fly properly? And a lasso comes out of the plane and grabs his wrist and pulls him aboard. And someone says, "Say, I've seen pictures of him. It's the Falcon."
Yeah, we find out who owns that lasso later on. Now, Something I was told recently, and I'm going to repeat it on a podcast as if it's fact. And this, folks, is where you need to do your own research and figure out whether I'm talking nonsense or not. And I welcome you to do it. But years and years of movies and comic books have taught me that whenever somebody opens a door in a plane, the cabins decompressurize and everyone gets sucked out of the plane. That happens every time, right? Every time. Fight Club, Lost, every time. Everybody dies horribly. And somebody was saying, this is where I'd ask you to challenge me, that that's not necessarily true. That, you can actually open the cabin door and, it's not going to blow up the plane straight away. There is an opportunity, particularly at certain heights, where you can just allow for what we see here, which is that somebody lassos Falcon and then helps him into the plane, and nobody gets sucked out of the cabin. Makes sense, because I've also seen Point Break, and people jump out of planes in that movie. I'm relying on a lot of movies to make this argument, because I've never had a cabin door open while I was on a plane.
But that brings to mind Iron Man 3, where people get sucked out of a plane and then turn it into skydiving, and they all survive. Yes. Like, no.
Yeah,
no.
He catches them and he gently deposits them in a river. Look, we're probably true to extremes here as to what actually is physically possible. But the reason I mention is, I wonder if somebody read this comic would look at it and going, well, no, that would destroy the plane. Everyone's going to get sucked out of the plane because they're helping Falcon into the plane. Apparently, that is not necessarily the case. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it depends on if it's pressurized or not, and how high up are they.
Yes.
I mean, we can see the river below, but it doesn't look like they're necessarily at jet airplane cruising altitude.
Yeah, but we were told he had flown high enough to enter the commercial airlanes. So, like, that would suggest high, quite high.
Sure.
But yeah, look, I just wanted to throw a little doubt on the depiction of every time the plane door opens, everyone gets sucked out.
Okay. Well, yeah, there were other questions that I had, like on the science beat later in this story, but we'll get to that later. So we go back to the Night People's hideout where Leela is, and so now this Inquisitor is demanding to know where the Falcon is. How can they find him? And she doesn't know, like, what plane he's going to be on, what hour he's going to get back, and they're really frustrated with her because she can't give them the information they want, and she thinks they're mad as March hares, which seems like kind of an old-fashioned expression for a young person even in the 70s.
Well, I mean, I was familiar with that expression and I was born in the 80s.
Well, so, yeah, familiar with it, but
it's still in circulation to some degree. But I know what you mean. Would a young person necessarily be saying that? But then you've got like Cap in this series of issues saying things like, "Do you dig it?" or "I gotta."
Yeah, I was rolling my eyes all over the place at some of Cap's with the kids lingo
dialogue. Yeah. So swings and roundabouts. But the Night People's plan basically, we need to kidnap a superhero's girlfriend so you can get a superhero.
Right.
That was their plan. It makes a kind of a sense because the whole genre of superhero comics is rescuing girlfriends from kidnapping villains. So, that's why they had all those Marvel comics. They needed to study the genre.
And we meet Brother Wonderful, who is a scientist, kind of a leader of the Night People.
I mean, they happen to spot the plane that Falcon happened to catch, and they happen to immediately assess,
Yeah.
oh, he's probably on that plane.
Coincidence happens a lot in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just happened to catch Falcon getting off a plane on a camera that's somewhere at the airport. At the airport, we see Falcon getting off, and we meet the guy who lassoed him in midair, Texas Jack Muldoon.
Oh, dear.
He's the rootinest, tootinest cowboy stereotype you ever saw.
Oh, he's a bit much. He needs to stop, frankly.
Yeah, with the really aggressively including the Texas accent in his dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't suppose I'll ever get tired of telling folks about my fancy roping at 30,000 feet.
So he's got a story now. And I was thinking, great, Jack. Let's put this character to bed and we can move on. He's happy. I'm kind of happy. Let's move away. No. He comes back in a big way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Do you know what I don't need in my life? More billionaires who figure they can solve all problems. That's what I don't need in my life right now. Right in this moment, right now, I do not need that.
Yeah, and we do find out that he's rich. That was his private airplane that he was on. And so Falcon flies away and somehow doesn't notice that he's flying straight into a cloud of Kirby crackle.
Well, I think the implication was that Brother Wonderful was targeting him. So he basically portal gunned him. I think that's what happened. Like, Texas Jack saw it, but I think it just appeared right in front of him. It's like a Star Trek episode where characters falling into the atmosphere and they go, "Oh, we've got to beam him up to the vessel from moving at speed." And like that's not something that would work. But bingo bango, the character figures it out and boom. He just gets zapped away.
Yeah, this is, speaking of Star Trek, this is a transporter thing that brings him to Brother Wonderful, his machine doing this.
Yeah, but I think this is the first mention of Zero Street, which is where we learn where they've been. Is that correct?
I think it was mentioned earlier.
Oh, was it mentioned earlier? I
think in the very first scene.
I really, really love Zero Street. I love the concept. I love the idea. It's what I was talking about before, but meeting the ordinary, the fantastical. But I love it so much. And I looked into it afterwards. I was going, well, surely somebody's reinvestigated this. Because this is the kind of thing that I can see Rick Remender building into an entire Captain America crossover event. Homeless people invading from another dimension. Yeah, Rick Remender's all over this shit. No, not actually done. No one's touched it. I'm very surprised. But it's an amazing concept.
Yeah, you would think at this point they've mined everything they could mine.
Yeah. Rooting through Alan Moore's trash. There's one per episode. Rooting through Jack Kirby's trash. Trying to dig up every little piece of trivia and exploding it into these, IP events. No, they left Zero Street alone.
10-part Texas Jack Muldoon storyline.
Oh. Don't tempt them. He buys a social media platform, and all of a sudden, we all have to deal with him.
So Falcon is brought to the Night People and immediately sprayed with some gas to disorient him, and they tie him up, or like strap his arms behind him anyway, and bring him to the Inquisitor, and they want to keep Falcon and Layla there, and they're going to give them shock treatment that will erase their memories. And I don't know that's quite how shock treatment works, but just go with it.
I mean, we know we all know the story about the Kennedy daughter. It certainly has been known to disrupt a person's sense of self to the point where maybe their whole behavior changes. And that's in effect what they're doing here. They're taking the tools of institutionalized, psychiatry and turning it on normal people like the Falcon, and then brainwashing them into another brother. I do like this is no way to treat a brother. So this idea that they have their brotherhood, and then Black America has its sense of brotherhood, and these two things are at odds, and their solution is to erase his personality. Like, destroy what makes the Falcon. But keep his abilities, keep his physical muscle memory of being a superhero. They want that. They want his ability to defend them. We'll find out later why. Very, very interesting. And I did wonder about the stuff that they sprayed him with. Was that also a sort of way of subduing patients in an insane asylum? Like a gas or a drug to sort of calm them, and they basically turned into a weapon, because everything here is like taking the modes of treatment and then flipping them on their head. That's right. What these characters are doing.
Yeah, that's stated in the comic. Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So yeah, they're given shock treatment. They've had these helmets put over their heads. I'm not sure if that's how shock treatment looks, but anyway, yeah, they are zapped, and we'll see next issue that they don't remember anything now. And we get a final scene with Cap at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. And the S.H.I.E.L.D. guy says there's been no further word. The Falcon and his woman are still missing.
Yeah, this poor Layla, like, everybody's just treating her as an appendage in these issues. Yeah. Like, it's really awful. She's just there to...
Did Isaac Hayes write this? His woman.
Yeah, his woman. And it's funny because, like, Kirby, as we've talked about over and over again, his background is in romance comics, and there are like scenes in these issues which harken back to the sort of romance comic era. There's the frustrated lovers tiffs we used to see in those comics, but usually the women characters would have names. They'd be spoken of by name, but yeah, his woman.
And a second S.H.I.E.L.D. agent says we have witnesses in New York who will swear they saw the Falcon literally vanish into thin air. Cap says, "That's incredible."
Yes. Incredible, you say? They're prepared for the indescribable. Amazing.
Coming next, Mad Dimension. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. At $2 a month and up, hear Bat Bits, a Batman 66 exploration with my brother Paul. At $4 a month, you also get our new monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I discuss Batman comics from the 50s and 60s with either Paul, Patrick, Emmet, or Kumar, as well as our previous series on Jim Starlin's run on Captain Marvel and the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support. So, we ain't doing 5 issues today. We're already a half hour in on one issue. Issue 202.
I had a feeling, Tim. I had a feeling.
Yeah. Danger in a Dark Dimension. The cover shows Cap going from Earth into this other dimension where Falcon is fighting a couple of monsters like floating in space. And the caption says, "And if you think this is wild, wait till you see our senses-stunning story." Jack just could never quite do Stan as well as Stan can.
He can't do it. He doesn't have that sheer bravado. Like, he just doesn't have it. Which is fine. It's fine. But he keeps trying.
Yeah, I mean, the dynamism in the graphics is there, but the language is just not quite not quite ringing true. This first page of this issue, I was really struck by the claustrophobic nature of it, because Cap and these three guys he's fighting are so tightly crunched together. I thought it was interesting. We see on the next page that Cap is like trying to come through a doorway. It's unclear from the first page exactly where he is and what these other structures are around him. But it was striking to me how crunched together they are.
Yeah, there is some. It's the physicality of it, the violence of it. It's a bit of a shock. He's just beaten the crap out of these guys, and the implication is in the next page they're essentially private security for a billionaire, and he's just beating the crap out of them. So I don't know. He old boyed his way up an entire tower block, like beat up every single person to get to the penthouse suite or wherever we are in the scene. Now he didn't book an appointment. He just decided to beat up everybody.
And he's trying to get in to see Texas Jack, who is out on this patio overlooking the city.
Still playing with his bloody rope.
Mercy in the morning. What in Waco's going on? Let that hombre pass, boys. He looks mighty interesting.
What in Waco's going on really has a very different meaning now. Very, very different meaning. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's horrible. But just the contrast in terms of how we understand that now with what we know, with what Jack Kirby would have thought it meant then. It's amazing to me.
Yeah. So Cap wants to ask him for his eyewitness account of seeing the Falcon disappear.
Well, let's pause a moment. Sorry. You're a mighty impatient man, stranger. Got a name? Captain America will do. Texas Jack doesn't know who Captain America is.
Yeah, that's a bit surprising.
He's been practicing with his lasso for so many years. He missed all of the defrosting of the superhero from World War II.
Missed World War II also.
Oh, well, yes.
I mean, this is the 70s. Texas Jack was presumably alive during the war.
That's true. My papa's oil field. He sold oil to the Germans.
Flim flamminest war profiteer you ever did see.
That's it. That's canon.
So anyway, with a lot more Texas drawl, he does tell Cap the story of what we saw happen, and one of his people, Beasley, comes in, and he says, "We have what I might term a fantastic projection," which I didn't quite understand what he meant, but we'll see that later because we switch scenes now.
Yeah, so it just so happens that Texas Jack hasn't been wasting his time. He has actually escalated the story on his own part. Captain America just has arrived at the opportune moment when things are going to become a little clearer. But yeah, we're back to Zero Street. Brother Inquisitor, there's a bit of dark side lackey about Brother Inquisitor. He's somewhat new apocalypse in nature. It's very familiar sort of setup, all these sort of medieval style clothes. But I love that the people from Zero Street went and robbed medieval style clothes from costume shops so they could dress up as these characters. I'm telling you, they read the comic books. That's what happened.
So Brother Wonderful sees that Falcon and Layla are now brainwashed, and now they're part of the Night People. And Falcon has really kind of wide, bulging eyes. So they seem a little zombified, not completely, but They just they sit upright and stare straight ahead. And the reason that they wanted a superhero was because there's a monster outside that they need protection from. And we see on the next page, so this is kind of the big reveal, that they're in another dimension, and they're in the asylum that they were held in. That's Brother Wonderful has managed to transport it to this other dimension, sitting on this little planetoid that's kind of just floating in space. How that works in terms of atmosphere, I'm not sure.
He worked it out.
Also, the thing that really bothered me here was gravity, because it seems like, as we'll see, gravity is down from the planetoid. And so what's keeping the planetoid floating if there's gravity pulling on things that fall off of the planetoid? Didn't quite make sense to me.
Questions like, let's details. But it's just really funky stuff, man. I love this. I love this idea. It's a mental asylum in another dimension. It's called Zero Street, and it's being invaded by these. As we'll come to, they're the invaders. They've invaded this dimension, and the indigenous people of this dimension, which have to be giant rock monsters, are going, "Get the fuck out of here!" And they've kidnapped a superhero to fight these rock creatures, which are reminiscent of the mindless ones from Fantastic Four and stuff like that. Yes, but this is great stuff. This is up there with a planet full of monsters that happens to look like a horned devil. We're going back to that. Kirby freaky sci-fi concepts.
Mm-hmm. So we get a 3-page fight between Falcon and the monster, which the monster basically wins. Falcon gets knocked out, and the monster's picking him up as the scene changes. And we go back to Cap, who is with Texas Jack and Beasley. And Beasley's figured out that this site in New York where they have now gone to is where the asylum was, and it was transferred to another dimension, and some other dimensional particles or atoms from that place have been put here in its place. So kind of just traded matter between the dimensions. Interesting the way that he draws it. It makes it look like there's like a oddly shaped swimming pool there filled to the brim.
It looked like a swimming pool at first. And it's sort of suggestive for people today who are coming to this comic book for the first time. It's reminiscent of Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things on Netflix has a similar idea of another dimension, and it's invading this dimension, and this is sort of dark mucus-like stuff coming through and infecting our plane of reality. So it's, similar idea. He changed his name. Did you notice? Because he goes from Beasley to Beamish. That's not what Beamish says. Am I misunderstanding something? So Captain America says there was a street here, that's true, but it was probably torn up as the city grew.
Right.
And then Jack says that's not what Beamish says. And then Beamish / Beasley / exposition guy explains that there's been a sort of matter transfer of what was sitting on the street with what we're looking at now.
Well, apparently Jack had as much trouble with remembering his characters' names as Stan did.
We got the B right, at least.
Right. The BEA part of it. Right. So Cap is having a hard time believing it, but turns out, the night people are the inmates of this dimension-traveling asylum, Cap says.
Then the night people are inmates of this dimension-traveling asylum is a great sentence. An amazing sentence.
And Brother Wonderful is Dr. Abner Doolittle, a nuclear physicist. Who suffered a breakdown and was...
Feed me more. This is just amazing.
And was confined to the asylum, but given gadgets to play with. Yeah, they must have been pretty powerful gadgets if he used them to travel to another dimension.
Yeah. And again, is this coming back to where he was sending the 9 people into the city to steal bits of tat, and maybe he actually knows how to take ordinary objects and make something out of them. Is this, he's so crazy he can figure out all this kind of stuff. But I love that they let him play with some science equipment and he created a transdimensional transporter. What happened to the staff of the asylum?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Maybe they were given shock treatment and turned into night people.
Night people, yeah. That's what I wonder. Or just pushed over the edge.
Fed them to the monsters.
I don't think we find out.
No. So then Cap realizes this is going to be a long night, so he goes to make a phone call. Oh boy.
This is rough. This is rough, man.
So it's his girlfriend Sharon Carter. And if you're used to more modern Sharon Carter, who's a tough SHIELD agent, this doesn't make any sense at all. Because he's telling her that he has to go off on another assignment, and she's all hysterical about how it's so tough being a superhero's girlfriend, and she's always off doing other things, and we don't get to spend a little time as human beings. And I know, SHIELD is baffled, and only Captain America can break this case. And then she gets angry, and she hangs up the phone on Cap, and she goes off in a corner and cries. And a while back, I read some 60s Cap by Lee and Kirby. And even there, she was a SHIELD agent. She was a SHIELD agent who wore pearls and white gloves, but she was a spy. And I don't know if at this point she's retired or what, but even if she's retired, you'd think she'd have a little bit more understanding of, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like her personality at all. Not the one that we know these days.
But let us take a moment to visit maybe the greatest panel of any comic book. Let's dive in. It's a bad break for all of us. Things weren't supposed to turn out this way, but they have. Sharon, what do you want me to say? We're losers. That's all. We're just losers. Scene. Amazing. Beautiful. Perfect. I love it. T-shirt. Poster. I want a short comic just about this scene. This is amazing. Oh, the drama of it. The sheer nonsense of it. It's you could slap that. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's this trend happening now on Reddit where people are taking all these out of context panels of, so we're recording this in January 2025. There are panels of Captain America punching Nazis suddenly appearing everywhere for some reason.
I wonder.
Let's not dwell on it. But this panel, you could put this panel up any day of the week, at any point in history, and people will assume You're talking about what's going on right now. It is so applicable. It's a bad break for all of us. Things weren't supposed to turn out this way, but they have. It is the bullshit version of Gandalf's speech from Lord of the Rings, where we need to do the best we can with the times we live in. That speech Ian McKellen gives, it always makes audiences cry, but it's Captain America screaming at his girlfriend. It's amazing. I love it.
So she wants Cap to retire, and we'll come back to this later. But just doesn't make any sense.
I know how you feel, honey.
Yeah, and I don't. It's been a long time since we saw Cap call Sharon honey. That's another really dated thing about this.
Oh, Sharon, this job is tough enough without adding your guilt to it. I've got to do it. Our best friends are in trouble. Sharon, this is about our polycule. This is rough. But I was laughing a lot.
And then when Texas Jack sees him, Cap says, "You can have your car back, Texas Jack. I made my call." And Jack says, "To a woman, I'll bet. No man ever looks like that unless he's talked to a woman."
Oh, I hate you, Texas Jack, so much.
I saw him as comic relief. I thought it was kind of great.
I know, I get it. Yeah, I understand. It's really overplayed. But I think retroactively, when we get to Alamo 2, which we will eventually reach, I retroactively hated him. I was like, I want you to die. You're too rich. You're a predatory species.
Well, yeah, and here he says, "I don't never chase devils myself, just money and women. I don't mind telling you, I got scads of both."
Oh, you scumbag.
But Cap says, "You're a winner, Texas Jack, no doubt of that."
I'm gonna test your theory, and like I was going, what do you mean? Is Captain America reading Jordan Peterson now? Like, what's going on? He's gonna slay some dragons with the billionaires. Yeah, no, this is rough. But yeah, I'm trying to see it as comic relief, as you suggest. I am trying.
So Jack seemingly leaves, and Cap waits by the pool of foreign atoms, hoping that the Kirby Crackle Cloud will show up, and complaining to himself about his aching back, and thinking about Sharon. And yeah, now this is something I've never heard. If there was ever a six-sided fool, it's Captain America. Six-sided fool? I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Six-sided. I'm so D&D brained now that I immediately just think of six-sided dice. But six-sided fool? No idea. Never heard that expression.
Yeah. But sure enough, the dimensional portal shows up. And Cap is kind of hesitant to jump into it, not sure what's going to happen. And we go back to Falcon against the monster. The monster's got Falcon in one hand, and Falcon wakes up and manages to get free by twisting the monster's thumb away from him, and flies around, zooms straight at the monster, and hits him hard. And knocks him off the planetoid, where he falls off the planetoid because gravity is below where the planetoid is floating without gravity.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Yep. We also didn't mention before that Brother Wonderful, I think it was, gave Falcon a new belt, which is increasing his speed.
Right.
So he's now moving at even greater speeds, hence the zoom sound effect. But yes, he's basically hitting this thing like a bullet. That's what I think what we're meant to take from this.
Mm-hmm. So the forever people, the the night people are happy with Falcon's success, but there are a lot of other monsters out there on other planetoids floating in their sky, so the monsters are a constant threat. But Brother Wonderful, Abner Doolittle, has a solution. He's going to force all the monsters through his dimensional portal to Earth. Let Earth deal with them.
Why, that's ingenious. Why not? I am a genius.
And I know I've seen Abner Doolittle in subsequent comics. I didn't know his origin, but he has been used again.
Oh, okay. So the Night People have come back?
Well, I don't know about the Night People, but Doolittle himself has, I'm sure. Also, I looked into it. Texas Jack appears again much later when Bucky is Cap. It must have been Brubaker's run, and I don't remember it, but I didn't know who Texas Jack was. So maybe I need to go back and look at Brubaker's run. I'm sure that he must have been substantially toned down by that time, because I can't imagine them doing this version of Texas Jack in the 21st century.
It could have been a sort of early aughts, postmodern. Let's play up how cartoonish he is. Because remember at the time the Simpsons had that character who's the Texas oil millionaire who always keeps shooting off his guns whenever he enters a scene. He starts dancing and starts shooting off his guns. That's Texas Jack, basically.
So we go back to Cap, and he finally decides to jump in. There's no choice. I must chance it. If the Falcon is alive, I'll survive too. If the Falcon is dead, I'll die too. And then after he jumps in, Texas Jack appears, and he's not passing up this adventure, and he jumps in too. Yeah,
so this panel where Texas Jack is whooping it up as... Maybe that's what it is. I was looking, it was very familiar. The pose was very familiar. I was like, where do I know this from? And it occurs to me, it could literally just be the ending of Doctor Strangelove. Look at him. Look at the way he's positioned. You know,
and the Yahoo.
Yeah. And he's got the hat in his hand, and he's swinging his hat. It's just like the ending of Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, that might have been Jack's inspiration here. Been watching Doctor Strangelove, and let's put that guy into the comic.
So it just sort of occurred to me that's because it was bugging me. I was like, where do I know that from? And I'm looking up now the name of the actor because I feel we need to give him his due because it's such an iconic appearance. Slim Pickens.
Right, yeah, okay.
Slim Pickens, Major King Kong. But yes, whooping up as he descends on an atom bomb.
Hey, I'm Jen.
And I'm Sean. We're here to tell you about our podcast, Worst Collection Ever.
And this is the show where we tell you about the worst comic book collection in existence. And it just happens to belong to us.
We have some of the worst comics from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They're bad. They're not worth anything.
No good.
Why do we own them? I own a number of issues of Terror Inc. and Guy Gardner.
Basically, we go around to local comic book stores and we buy everything we can out of dollar boxes.
We tell you about the weird stuff in them. We tell you about stuff that's related to them. We go into tangents. And we're very uninformed, so...
Oh my god, totally. But totally check out our podcast because you'll hear us just talk and joke about Marvel books and DC books from God only knows when.
That's right. It's our show, Worst Collection Ever, every Tuesday on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. Download, rate, subscribe, tell a friend.
It'll be good and terrible, but good.
Okay, well, I think let's do one more. We can finish this arc. We had thought about doing 5 issues, but we'd be here all night. And it's morning as we're recording this. at least in Japan. So let's do 203. This is Alamo 2, as you mentioned earlier.
This is when my laughter suddenly stopped.
Okay.
What's happening now?
So Cap has arrived in the other dimension and is looking around the laboratory and can see that it was put together by a scientific genius. But he knows the person is also a mental case who has transported this asylum and its inmates beyond psychiatric help. Worse yet, he's managed to abduct Layla and the Falcon to this spatial limbo. And then Texas Jack comes through, to Cap's surprise.
Great sound effect again. Zit.
And then they're both confronted by Brother Wonderful, who is upset with them for coming through, trespassing in their domain. And, Cap says, no, we're just looking for our friends. But Brother Wonderful's not sympathetic.
Cap's interesting as well, because he's being very diplomatic, I think we could say. And then he speaks very appreciatively of Zero Street. Like, he keeps talking about how amazing it looks, how this is incredible. He acknowledges Doolittle, Brother Wonderful, as a genius. Like, he's being quite respectful almost. And Texas Jack is blowing up his spot a little bit. It's like, oh, they're going to fight you. Oh, they're going to fight you. It's like, no, calm down. Shut up. I'm trying to get through this. But yeah, he's been relatively calm. Given that we just saw him shouting at his girlfriend. I'm just saying. He's suddenly reasonable.
So they go out onto the grounds of the asylum. And I don't know, now it's kind of like Brother Wonderful's just taking them on a tour. And they see that the sky is so weird. And then Cap spots Layla and goes over to her, but of course she doesn't recognize him. Nor does Falcon, who swoops in and punches Cap for supposedly assaulting his girlfriend. And Cap realizes they don't recognize him.
I do love Falcon's line, I'm the trouble chaser in this precinct. That's a great line. Trouble chaser? Oof. It rolls off the tongue.
So Falcon wants to fight, and Cap's getting punched, and then the Inquisitor comes along and tries to calm them down, and Cap finds out that in order to be a superhero for them, Falcon had to, quote-unquote, have shock treatment. And if Cap wanted to be a superhero for them, he'd need the same treatment. And yeah, Cap says they not only took over the asylum, but also its methods for cure.
Yeah, and they're surrounded now. They're the night people are sort of emerging over walls, through windows, and top of ledges, looking down on Cap. It's sort of an inverse of the cover from 201 in a way. And you've got this like infinite sky above them with all the little planetoids. It's again, this is where I keep coming back to Kirby's imagination. This is so suggestive of there's this formlessness to the dimension they're in, and then you've got these crazy people who are living, thriving there, and there's the imagination of Jack and his ability to then marry them up to commentary, which is actually challenging. Like, there's something very confronting about this storyline. And as much as I'm sort of pulling up at certain attempts at humor, I find it's a really interesting set of issues. Like, he's saying something here, and he's talking about mental illness, and he's talking about institutionalization, and he's talking about the treatment of these patients with electroshock therapy and what that's doing to them. And then he's flipping that on its head. And this could be a Jordan Peele movie. This could be, like, this is an amazing premise for a sort of horror / sci-fi adventure. And it's Captain America comic.
Yeah.
There's something just wild about this. And yeah,
Well,
that's why
something
I enjoyed Kirby.
that I had in my mind, though, like these issues and the following story, which we'll have to do another time, is there any reason for them to be Captain America stories? Wouldn't they work with some other superhero? Because there's nothing like inherently like America about.
Well, I think there is something inherent. I think that's what I've been trying to talk about. I think it is about America. I think it is about what's happening in America. And it's about mental health, and it's about the treatment of these people in these institutions. And what we've seen with the bicentennial battles, and even with issue 200, is Captain being confronted with the failure of America. That is what Kirby is serving us up. It's this idea of this superhero who represents the best of what America could be, being shown over and over again. The country you've chosen to represent is in serious trouble, and there's a malaise everywhere. And that's why I went on and on about that cover to 201, because I really think that cover is saying something. And then this page as well is flipping on its head, and again showing Cap being confronted with, this is the result of your society not dealing with the problem. And the inmates are now running the asylum, pardon the obvious pun, and they're doing it in such a way because no one actually helped them. They were being treated like monsters, and now they're in a dimension of monsters. And they're using superheroes to fight monsters. There's something juicy here, man. It's just it's on the tip of my tongue. There's something really interesting happening. That's why, I do think it has to be a Captain America comic, but it's a Jack Kirby Captain America comic. You know, so it is actually weird, but it's saying something about America. And I think other Captain America writers would, as you were alluding to, not get into this kind of stuff because, well, no, he's about the military and he's about espionage and he's about fighting Nazi supervillains. And that's what Captain America stories are about. And we go a different way here.
I was kind of wondering if this would have worked as a demon story.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think these characters look like, because of the medieval aspect, you could certainly see this could be an amazing demon comic where he finds that there was a monastery with mad monks from 900 years ago that went into another dimension, and they're still there, and they're stealing religious texts and bringing them to this dimension, and the demon gets wrapped up in it, and maybe the demon finds it amusing and lets them carry on doing what they're doing. Maybe that would be the story. But yeah, I think that's an interesting pull. I like that.
So the Night People are telling Cap if he doesn't submit to the shock treatment to become their superhero, then they'll kill him. And they're forcing him to make the decision. And he's like, I must have time to think. Do I want to die? Is that better?
Texas Jack just wants to shoot everybody.
No man can cope with an insane proposition like this, and Captain, I think it's time to consider using my shooting iron. We're in a bad spot. That's no lie, but there must be a better answer to this than muscle. So Cap decides the only way is to take Falcon and Layla back by force. And just then one of the monsters attacks. Convenient timing. So, of course, Falcon goes after the monster. That's his job.
We'll get to that. Like we're this issue's called Alamo 2, and we literally have a piece of dialogue here before Falcon leaps in, and the line is, "He must be one of the thousands of native. He must be one of thousands native to this dimension. It is they who look upon us as outsiders." And so we are literally saying the rock monsters are an indigenous people, and the white
we're
insane
the invaders.
are the invaders, and now we need to kill them because we have a right to this place, even though we're the invaders. And Texas Jack's like, oh, great. I get to do the Alamo again? Fantastic. It's made explicit.
So yeah, Falcon jumps in. There are additional monsters coming in. It's not just the one. And so Texas Jack and Cap are going after them too. Yeah, again, Texas Jack says, that kind of thing's not new to Texans, brother. Shucks, that's how we got started as a state. So I think we're seeing kind of why Texas Jack got brought into this story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I don't like it. But I get it. I understand what it's doing. It's just such an ugly... I kind of want, like, Cap to call him an ass. But no, he won't, because, like, he likes Texas Jack. But yeah, it's interesting the line Kirby's walking here.
So then we see there are more and more monsters coming. They've decided to invade all at once.
Repel all at once. They're not the invaders.
Right.
They're evicting these squatters.
A page full of purple monsters. And so I keep wanting to say the forever people. Jeez. The night people are escaping, taking shelter in their building.
The asylum. Yeah.
So Cap and Falcon are working together here out of necessity, because of course Falcon still has amnesia. So we got some fight scene here.
They've got a bit of like, when two heroes meet for the first time, they, fight because they have to.
Yeah.
And then they're forced to work together, and there's a bit of, talk back rivalry still there. Easy, man, don't haul me in like a sack of flour. I hate to see those classy wings scorched to a crisp. There's a bit of, fuck you. I have to work with you, but I don't like it. That's kind of what they're doing.
But yeah, this page that starts with but the pounding continues everywhere. I thought this was a really good page of kind of aspect to aspect of the monsters breaking into the asylum. Just you kind of feel like you're there, and you've got these monsters coming in at you.
Yeah, it's very frightening. There's inevitable. They can't be stopped. Unless Brother Wonderful has something to say about it.
Right. So he's wheeling in his transporter machine to send the monsters to Earth. And so he revs it up, and Cap's got an idea. So he talks Brother Wonderful into, like, you got to test the machine first to make sure it works. And so let's send Falcon and Layla through just to make sure it works. So Brother Wonderful's like, well, yeah, all right, I guess we can test it. And so Falcon and Layla go back to Earth. And
it looks like he spanks them on the ass as they go through as well.
And then Texas Jack goes through, and now Brother Wonderful's getting a little annoyed. Like, what are you doing here? And so then Cap knocks the Inquisitor through and throws Brother Wonderful through also, and then gets everybody else through, and he goes through last and leaves a bomb for the monsters.
I mean, thank God it had a slow timer on it. So it didn't immediately go off.
And so the bomb goes off and it blows up the planetoid completely. And that's the end.
Yeah, it's this is great. This is really good. This is really good. I think, the comparisons to the Alamo were I don't know, bordering on tasteless at a certain point. But it confronted the reality of it. Like, they're talking about mass slaughter, they're talking about invasion, they're talking about, Captain America sort of acknowledging the comparison being made by the characters around him. It's really interesting. And you got Texas Jack, who's like, oh, great, I get to redo the Alamo. Fantastic. Something very odd about that. Why would you want to redo the Alamo? Why would you want to do it? It didn't end well for a lot of people. That's why you say, remember the Alamo.
Yeah, I don't know. An iconic battle is still a battle that somebody got beat to crap it through. All right. So, yeah, we'll have to do 204, 205 another time. But, yeah, this is an interesting arc.
It's weird. It's wacky. It's Captain America.
The issues we discussed in this episode are available in the Captain America Bicentennial Battles trade paperback from Marvel. At deconstructingcomics.com, you can connect to us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and find links to subscribe to the podcast. You can comment on any episode on our site, drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, Emmet and I finish up the Bicentennial Battles trade with Captain America and the Falcon issues 204 and 205, the battle against Agron. Who is Agron? Where or when does he come from? And what's his game? That's next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.